Hi, I am Emma Georgetta. I am your student's math teacher at Leotis V. McDaniel High School. Welcome to Algebra 3-4. I am going to just cover some ideas, including the daily flow of our class, how to find work if your student is absent, which I think, could happen in any capacity this year. I want to make sure that families know how to find that. Our grading policy and our syllabus, including portfolio grading and how to check your students' progress. So, I want to start by showing you our Canvas page. Our Canvas page for Algebra 3, there is always a slideshow at the very top. And the slideshow at the very top is meant so that there's extremely quick access to any links students will need for the day, and so that students who are absent know exactly where to go to find what's missing or what they need to complete. So the day of, the current day will always be the featured day, but you can always go back. So if your student was absent on a different day, you can go back to the day they were gone. It tells you exactly what to do if you're absent in the corner in the yellow box. So if you are gone from school or if your student is gone from school, they can read this, complete that work, and submit it so they maintain on track. The flow of our class every day is we do a warm-up either as a full class or in groups, and we have students work through math generally in groups. There are days where there's independent days, there's days where there's group days, but the goal is that students are talking about math and thinking about math and not always a procedural way. There's plenty of time where students are being asked to solve for X or do math procedures because that's part of math class. And there's times where students are asked to do more like deep thinking because that's how we help our brains grow and gather skills that we'll actually use as adults. So students are going to complete a math portfolio for their grade, and students can click into it here, but I'll show you the general feed of it. Essentially, what's going to happen is students are going to complete self-assessments in class on 2 of the math practices. They will complete summative assignments for each of our units by choice instead of traditional testing. So they still have to complete an assignment about a unit, but it's more like an open notes version of something where students can actually show me what they know. They'll have choices in that. And then they have to complete a portfolio at semester where they reflect on their growth in each of the math practices, and they give evidence of their grade. And I'll show you what those look like on the next page. At quarter, your student is going to receive a pass or a no pass or a no grade. And I will tell you more about that in a moment too. These are the, tenets that I think are really important to think about in math this year though. Everyone can learn math regardless of your history in math class. There's a lot of math anxiety in the world. There's so many reasons why kids hate math. Everyone can actually do math, and when you only test students in a high stress situation, you really don't get to the root of everyone being able to do math. When you give them opportunities to show you what they know, students gain a lot of, independence, and they can feel good about their skills. We really, really care about depth over speed. So you can turn in work at any point. It's always better to turn work in closer to on time because you're gonna get better feedback from me, but you can turn work in until semester if that's how long it takes you to understand something. And the goal of this class is learning, not performing. So we want to engage at high levels every day in class without making everything about a grade. Of course, I have to give a grade. So for a C or higher, students need to complete every summative assignment completely and correctly with revisions. They each need to have a self-assessment per one of these, and then they have to have a minimum of 4 in-class self-assessments. And I'll talk about the math practices in a moment. But essentially, these self-assessments are their evidence for their grade at semester. How much have you grown and be able to explain your reasoning? How and where are you finding patterns, and how can you express that to me in all of these different math topics we've seen? So if your student wants an A in this class, they need to use evidence from their portfolio to argue that they've exceeded in both math practices. A B means they've exceeded in one of the math practices. A C means they've met both of the math practices. A no pass means that you're missing any of this work. Everything needs to be done to pass. Since we're not testing, we're saying that you have to engage at a high level in all the content. And a no grade means that you haven't shown enough evidence. Like either you're not coming to class very often at all, or you've turned in nothing and I really don't know where you are. At quarter, you will get a pass or no pass, but but we will spend time as a class individually with students. We'll like decide where they're kind of leaning grade wise, and I'll give you some feedback for your student at semester at quarter also, so you can kind of see where they're going. So you have like a track of where they are, so that will come January, we're not in a situation where it's like, oh, but my student hasn't done anything and I didn't know that. So the math practices I keep talking about are math practice 3, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. And math practice 7, look for and make use of structure, which we are calling find and explain patterns. These are 2 of the 8 Common Core math practices that students are supposed to be also meeting in addition to all the regular Common Core curriculum. So we're kind of using the Common Core curriculum as like the gateway to explain these math practices. Students can revise any work, they can revise any math practices, they can revise any self-assessments. But when you turn your work on time, you get more feedback from me, and that feedback is what helps a revision. So if you turn all your work in January, I can't read all of your work from the semester and give you feedback for you to edit in a week. It's just not going to happen, right? So keeping on track is going to help students feel more successful come January, and they're going to compile their portfolio. So a self-assessment looks like, this is the outline of it. So students will in class have time to tell me what they're self-assessing on. So on last week on Friday, they self-assessed on isolating variables. They'll tell me something that was like an aha moment or something they're confused about, so that we can help clarify things as a whole group. And then they'll choose, okay, am I going to explain my reasoning today, or am I going to tell Mr. Georgetta about patterns I saw? If they're going to explain your reasoning, they'll click here, they read this rubric, and they decide where they are. So if someone thinks that they're exceeding in this assignment right now, they'll click exceeds, and they'll tell me in detail exactly what they can explain to someone who might not understand it. They'll tell me mistakes someone might make. They'll give specific math examples from their work. And this helps me understand what they know, and it solidifies what they know in their own brains. If they said they meet, they'll be able to explain at least something in detail about one problem. Everyone can explain something from a math problem. And again, you can revise. So students will complete these in class, and then at semester, they will get to compile these pieces. Here's their summative self-assessments. Here's their criteria. So at semester, they'll get to kind of reflect on their math identities. They'll get to go back and look at all of their self-assessments and say, okay, overall, I think I'm here, and here's exactly why, and here's my evidence for it. They'll compile this. We'll have a conversation one-on-one about their grade, and then they'll be assigned a grade. So it's definitely less traditional, and it's a lot of work, but it allows students and me to understand what they know much more than like putting a number down on a test. I'm really excited. The feedback from students last year was extremely positive. The amount of students who said that they could like actually focus on math instead of like worrying about a test was huge. The percent of students who felt like they really learned something in the class was really, really huge. And that's true in terms of like even demographically who was affected positively by this. A lot of our students who were historically underserved had a really positive experience getting to show what they knew versus being tested. When I keep saying these summative assignments for us, I can show you via our example of them via our syllabus. So if you wanted to find our syllabus in our Canvas, you can go down to syllabus, this little owl, and we have 3 versions. We have an English version, a Spanish version, and a Vietnamese version. I'm going to open English. And I encourage all parents, guardians, families, VIPs to read through this so you know exactly a more succinct way of what I'm trying to say here. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's Sunday morning. I'm trying to talk to you from my house. But you get a version of what your students see in class. So semester 1, starting, I think in 2 weeks, we're going to have a summative choice option for students. So the students will either be able to show their learning from their review unit on a large problem set, an interactive Desmos activity for students who are much less interested in like just doing traditional problems, or a like poster or visual medium explaining concepts. So we want to have different ways you can tell me you know something because people's brains work differently. For quadratics, we'll have similar ideas. We'll have something that's more interactive, something that's more traditional. And the parent function, students will create a coloring book page from transformed equations. It's actually a really, really cool project. Here's an example of it from last year. Students create images of something that's important to them using only math equations. And then we compile everything into an actual printed coloring book that students can bring home. So you kind of get to see like the fruits of your labor. So this is our former teacher, Ms. Hammond's example. Here's my example. And students get to write so many fun equations, move them around. It is extremely fun, intimidating, wonderful, and they're all capable. We'll do it. But it's a great way to show students that like math is not this isolated thing, right? Math and art, math and engineering, math and science, math and English. We're writing a lot this year. All these things overlap. Boop. So every day in class, students need to bring their Chromebook, their charger, a journal, and a pencil. Students' assignments will be online. That does not mean they have to do everything on the computer. That's because it saves a ton of paper and it allows any student wherever they are in the world to participate in class. So all of our lessons are usually on a Desmos. If you're in class, you can use paper and pencil on anything you want to. You just will look at the problem on a computer. If you're absent that day, you have complete access to anything we did. This is a reiteration of what I told you about grading and some things to know. Students can complete anything they need to in class in theory. If you have revisions to make that don't get done in class, you can always come to ELT time on Thursdays when we have flex days, or you can work on them outside of class. I'm not giving additional outside homework because in this context, I feel like that's busy work. It's unnecessary. We'll have time in class to do what we need to do. I will always have options. If students want to do extra work, I have things to offer you, but it's not going to be a requirement. But again, if you don't finish revisions or finish other things, you might have to do that outside of school if you don't get it done during class time. Late work is accepted until January with no real penalty, other than, as I said before, when you don't turn it in on time, that's less feedback. I have 150 students to give feedback to. If 30% of them don't turn work in until January, I cannot give you feedback on your work, and that will affect your grade overall. So when you can do things more on time, you get that feedback. Synergy is only going to be used for your final grade. Everything will be in Canvas. So if you want to check your students' grades or how they're doing or how on track they are, you can, when you go to the syllabus, there's an instruction right here, if you click here, of exactly how to have access to your students' Canvas page. So you should go into our syllabus, make sure that you can be an observer on your students' Canvas page. And if you go to their grades, you'll see complete or incomplete on any of their assignments. If they're on track, any assignment in there has a check mark and says complete. If there's ever an X that says incomplete, that means they're missing something and they need to fix something. That's the best way to see if your student's on track right now, going to their grades. Any assignments that are due will be in there. If there's a check on everything, they're on track. If there's an X anywhere, they need to fix something. This is a working syllabus. If there's updates, we'll let you know. Otherwise, this has been long and, wordy. And did I cover what I wanted to cover? Pretty much. I hope that this is helpful. If you have any questions, which I expect because this is fairly untraditional in certain ways, do not hesitate to email me, egeorgetta@pps.net. I love talking to families. I love working with your students. We have the best students in the city. The new building is amazing. This is my 7th year at McDaniel. Didn't say that before, but I love working there. It's a phenomenal community, and I'm really excited to help your student grow and learn math this year. So feel free to reach out anytime, and I hope to see you at back to school night.